Rohit Srivastava is here. Let's take the discussion forward with Rohit as well. Rohit, how does the setup look? It was a kind of that peak of pessimism in mid of March. Is that over? And also, I want your opinion on this collapse of VIX. People are trying to make sense of it. What are your thoughts?
So let me get VIX out of the way first. The decline is, of course, surprising because every time we have headed into an election season, the last month has seen a very high premium, almost 20-25% VIX is what we've seen in the past. And the reason is that anticipation of volatility, will the result be in favor? Sometimes the numbers were on the corner that, will they cross 300, not cross 300? And so the market priced in a lot of those things. And that is why the VIX was elevated. It looks like this time around, and of course, it was not new. We did see the VIX go up a bit in Feb and March, but then the market is already sensing, and most people you speak to, that these numbers are going to be closer to 400, 380, 360 standalone and so on, which means we are seeing a clear-cut win. So what is the volatility all about? The market's already rallied. We've priced in the potential for a win. And that doesn't really leave room for volatility out of an outcome, right? Either the outcome had to be a negative outcome or an unexpected positive outcome. Here it is an expected positive outcome. So there's nothing to be priced in terms of risk. And that is what the VIX is reflecting, that there's very little risk to really hedge. And the demand for options has sort of collapsed on that front. And that is what it is. I think there's no other logical explanation for it. It does also appear in the Nifty futures premium, which is the other way that volatility is calculated, because it's calculated on the futures price, and the premium actually dissipated by almost 100 points yesterday, which shows that a lot of long unwinding may have happened at that, or rather hedging may have unwinded at that level. Either way, that led to that unwind. And so I think we are heading into this election with not much expected in terms of change in outcome. And really not much volatility out of the event. So this makes the market look completely normal ahead of an event. Like it's a given, things are done and dusted. Now, what is the setup like overall? Now, because we've already priced in some of these things, the markets have rallied on the election. The election part is done. What we are really trying to, or were trying to weigh in March or even last week when the markets corrected, has been the risk of global bond yields going up, and of course some of the geopolitical concerns. I think the geopolitical concerns are less severe at this point of time. I think it's the bond yields which are still sticky, because the US 10-year is still at around 4.7% plus or minus. It hasn't really gone down, but the markets have rebounded as if nothing really happened. And so that is sort of a bit of my fear right now, that I hope we are not complacent as we head back higher. I would really want to see a reversal in the US bond market, from the lows upwards, to be able to say that, risk is completely off the table. So I think the risks are still there. And in this recent bounce, we have retraced almost or more than 66% of the fall that we had seen since the 10th of April. Which is a decent level to be watching. So we're watching that today. Do we sustain above it, or we don't? Do we close that gap that we made? The gap goes all the way to 22,500 odd. Between 22,427 and 22,510 or so, I think, is the gap. If we close that gap, then it would be a much more bullish sign that bulls have overcome the weakness that was showing up earlier. But otherwise, I think the risk of rising yields and hitting the market again is still on the table, not completely gone away.
Right. So that's the take coming on the VIX and where the markets are headed for from here on. But Rohit, which are the sectors that you're liking at this point in time? Any specific sector as a whole? Because we've seen the rally already play out in the PSU space. One of the PSU counter that is reported is number bottom of the screen. Chennai Petro, spectacular numbers coming in on a quarter-on-quarter basis. But which is that one sector that you are looking out for in this phase?
It looks like the metals, though it's late stage in the rally, but metals is the area, because the whole talk about lowering interest rates that the Fed has been doing. So this is the contradiction, right? One side you have the Fed saying, yeah, we will lower rates this year. And on the other side, you have the bond market saying no, we are raising rates this year. So That doesn't make sense. But so far, the markets are anticipating higher prices based on those lower rates, and that is where the metals is really doing well. So I think that looks like the only outperforming sector, one-sided. But otherwise, most of the other interest rate sensitives like autos and all, again, take us back to the concerns around rates and how they will impact the market. So I'm just taking a slightly cautious approach here. Really want to watch a couple of days more. Let this expiry be closed tomorrow, and then really take a view of how things are going to pan out.
Right. Just a quick word on telecom stocks because there have been massive moves coming in on both sides. Bharti, Vodafone, Indus, some others. Anything which you have looked at, would you be a buyer in telecom related plays?
No, it's not a sector that has been on top of our mind because generally it has not performed on a relative basis, at least. I mean, if I compare the metals index with a telecom performance, the telecom performance would be far, far behind. So it's not a sector that ever attracted our attention. It has gained some traction recently, but it's not something we consider on an investment basis. I mostly avoid the telecom sector.
So that is the view coming in the telecom sector and also market as a whole. Thank you so much, Rohit, for joining us on the show and giving us your take on that, as well as what happened with VIX yesterday as well. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. And